Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters. This will be our last episode of Coffee with the Critters in the year 2020. Bye-bye, 2020. Good morning. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. For those that are new, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We're an international educational center where we teach people all over the world how to empower animals and the people that care for them using positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis. We do that through our live streams that you can find on our website. Let's get this off here. You can find on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. We've been live streaming our services for, 6-7 years. And actually, Coffee with the Critters will be 6 years old this coming March of 2020. So we've been live streaming free content called, or episodic content called Coffee with the Critters every Sunday morning, unless otherwise noted, for the past over 5 years. Every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, unless otherwise noted. Sometimes we do cocktails with the critters on Saturday or Sunday night. And depending on the people that we interview, what time zone they're in will just help determine what time we go live. So, good morning, everybody. Hey, Laura, good to see you. And Eva, Daniela, Kim, Robin, Tambry, Adrian, Sharon, Lisa. I think that's Karen on here as the Animal Behavior Center. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had great holidays. This is our last episode of 2020, so I thought I'd like to hear your favorites of what we did in 2020. But before we get started, I do a little recap of the past week and how to find some of the content we have. So our events page here on our Facebook page will show upcoming events. And Karen, do we have the Avian Summit on there that's coming up the end of January? I also have something coming up in March. We are planning for our workshops in spring, workshops where you will find here at the Animal Behavior Center. You can find them here on our events page or on our website. We also, if you've noticed, our email newsletters have been very regular lately. So those are starting to go out and will continue to go out regularly. You can find them on our website or right here on our Facebook page, which is, you're on it, under join our email newsletter list. Hey, Deb, good to see you. Okay, just a quick recap before we get started. I like to show things I did in the past week so people can see the wide variety of the work that we do here. So what we focus on here at the Animal Behavior Center is how to get animals to do what we need them to do without the use of force. And those can be numerous different things. We are training a wide variety of species. So the focus of our work is not necessarily on the species of the animal, but it is on the individual and our work with applied behavior analysis. So applied behavior analysis is using incorporating B.F. Skinner's laws of behavior, manipulating the environment, using environmental events to get behavior. So a lot of that is observation. Watch what animals are moving towards, what they're moving away, gathering their reinforcers, what they're moving towards, and virtually sticking them in our pocket, and giving that same, and that's not just food. If you find yourself using food as reinforcers, it's only going to be a short period of time before you find yourself stuck. So I'd say food reinforcers are, in the beginning, when we are first training animals and shaping behavior, if we're lucky, we can use food. McDonald's needs to have me they need to be a sponsor of Coffee with the Critters. Hey, now that's a good idea. So you're lucky if you can work with food. A lot of times we're working with animals with histories of reinforcement, meaning long histories of reinforcement of fear, force, coercion, using aversives, positive punishers, coercion, I said, negative reinforcers, Then you have some counter conditioning to do. Counter conditioning means retraining. So you have to reshape behaviors and show animals that hands are good things. They bring good things. They aren't used for force, pushing. When we have to use force or aversives, either we don't know any better or the situation at hand requires this to happen right now because the alternative of not doing this right now is worse. And that's called positive punishment, or using aversives. I have had to positively punish behavior. But when I'm doing it, I'm thinking fast because I know I can get behavior a lot faster using positive reinforcement. But I will use a positive punisher if the alternative in this instance, in this very instance, is worse. And such as if I do not force this animal to move right now, it is going to get seriously hurt. So I will force that animal to do something, but then it's note to self, this needs training. Do not find yourself in this predicament again. Because if I'm having to force some baboons, which, never mind, because you're not going to force baboons. It's just not going to happen. The consequences will be immediate, and you'd be lucky if you can tell anybody about it. If you have to force an animal to do something, okay, here's an example where I've had to force. Rocky's been sitting on my hand, perching on my hand, and I'm like picking up his feet and putting him on a perch because somebody behind me is screaming and they are in trouble. And we'll work on this. Okay. Hey, Jen Hirakawa says, oh, and you will remain that way. Unknown. Oh my God, we just had a pup come in that has spent the last year working with bark busters, and she is fearful of all sounds and fast movement. She is a sweet dog, but this is going to be a long haul counter conditioning. Yeah, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you have to counter condition. The problem with counter conditioning is, and most of us find ourselves in situations where we have to counter condition because the animal has already learned behavior, and that certain behavior may be undesirable to us, but if the behavior continues to happen for that animal, it's serving a purpose for that animal, and it's desirable for that animal, and the animal wouldn't continue to do it if it didn't bring some kind of desired consequence for the animal. So the problem with us with counter conditioning is we have to find reinforcers to change the behavior, to earn that animal positive reinforcement. But the problem is, okay, here's the undesired behavior by us that the animal has learned. Oh, I've learned that if I bark and jump and pee, whatever, I get this outcome. Okay, so we teach them, okay, what outcome are you looking for? And if it's acceptable to us, we'll teach them, because this is teamwork, it's not just one side. If it's acceptable to us, then we teach it, hey, this replacement behavior, this is the behavior that earns you that attention that you're seeking for. The problem with the importance in having to avoid
coming
this.
Back to the back run due to the tortoise shot today.
Is
I didn't know the tortoises had shots, but I can
okay. So the animal has learned this behavior, undesired behavior, earns a desired consequence. Now we have to teach it that, okay, say the desired consequence is attention, which is a lot of the times with domestic animals. Then you have to teach it, no, it's this behavior that earns you the attention. The problem is if you don't pay attention and stay on work on different schedules of reinforcement to earn this reinforcer, then the animal knows if this isn't working for me, I'll go back to this because this has a history of reinforcement. Does that make sense? Counter conditioning equals removing bad habits. Lisa asked if counter conditioning equals removing bad habits. Counter conditioning, Lisa, means just retraining. Okay. So the animal has already learned a certain behavior, gets reinforcers. And it's something that's hard for us to live with. So it's important for us to work as a team. So we teach it this other behavior. Does that make sense? Sylvia says shock collars, and Karen says they throw chains near the dog in a cloth bag. Yeah, all those. When people are using positive punishers to change behavior, aversives like the shock collar or the cloth bags, it means they don't have the education to know how to do different. Okay, so they become our subjects. We can teach them. You can do different. So before I get too far off, I wanted to show you some of the training that has happened and some of the events that have happened here this past week. So Christmas Day, I spent at my center by myself, which I enjoy. Okay, obviously I do because there's cookies sitting on the table. I just noticed. I was able to get my animals out and spend time with my animals, which I haven't had a lot of time to do lately due to an upcoming move and everything we're preparing for that. But if 2020 has taught us anything else, it's that monetary items are not what's important. It's the ability to spend the time with the ones we love. And so many of us in 2020 have not been able to spend the time with the ones we love. I haven't seen my mom. Well, I've seen her, but I haven't been able to touch my mom, hug my mom since March. But that's for her safety. But that's what 2020 has taught us, if anything else. A lot of other things too. And okay, so I got some dogs and some sloths coming up, but I wanted to show this because this made my day. I think Jeannie Gilligan sent this to me Christmas night and the day after Christmas. Remember Sunny Bunny? Sunshine? The bird from Best Friends Animal Society in Kanab, Utah, that the Sam I Can Foundation transferred to. We brought it to the Animal Behavior Center for training and analyzing, and we noticed that this bird needs to be with another bird. He would be so happy just being housed with another bird. So I contacted, good morning, Joanna. Good to see you. So I contacted a helpingwing.org out in Blairstown, New Jersey. I know this is bird heavy right now, but it's not going to be. We're getting ready to switch to sloth heavy, dog heavy. And she agreed to take him in there and live with other birds for the rest of their lives. So just wanted to give a shout out to a helpingwing.org out in New Jersey. And what was I going to say about that? Helping Wing. Shout out to a Helping Wing. Okay. So thank you, Jeannie and John Gilligan. Hey, Samantha, good to see you. So a couple things that we've done this past week. I know you guys know from last week's episode of Coffee with the Critters. We're knee deep in sloths right now. And almost every animal, because I train so many different species of animals, I don't get the luxury of training tricks or things like this, but I do train a lot of animals to stay calm while being, a lot of them are education ambassadors. But here is Fiona, a sloth, that I'm teaching to get onto a perch so we can get a weight on because we think she's pregnant. So I also worked last week on, I think we did this last Sunday, on feeling her belly, allowing me to feel her belly so I can feel for a baby. Something else we were working on doing is we're going to be moving our sloths this summer to outdoor exhibits. And these sloths, well, I've noticed, say now this is behavior. This doesn't matter what the species, this is behavior. So I'm working with these sloths and I'm getting them to get on a scale, okay? And what I've noticed is sloths don't move as slow as you think. So they're coming to me and they're going across this perch, which I have on a scale so I can get their weight. What I'm noticing is once you get the weight, your training is not done because you now need to get that sloth off of the scale. So I moved the scale a little bit to turn it around so I could ask it to get off this perch. What I noticed is as soon as I moved that perch, it scared the sloth. So what does a scared sloth look like? I'll tell you. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but I was like, oh, that doesn't look like you're very comfortable. It reached out an arm like this and waved, and then it opened its mouth. That is not anything I want anywhere near me, is a sloth with an open mouth. So sloths have a very nasty bacteria-filled mouth that can get you very sick. So we don't want them opening their mouths. We don't want a scared sloth anyway. So what we did is we started last week, okay, let's get them used to be hanging from a perch that starts moving. So this is what we're doing with Fiona. I got her on a perch, and then I've noticed through using environmental events that as long as she's got food in her mouth, she showed no signs of reaching to want to get off, and she was just focused on the next piece of food. So here's Amanda and I moving her on a branch so she gets used to that. Okay, last thing before we get started on the topic is, I think this was Christmas night. No, it wasn't. It was Christmas Eve night. So I was spending it with my animals, and I was just like, I'm inside with the dogs, and I was like, why don't we just train something? Because my animals love to be trained. Studies show if you're actually using positive reinforcement interaction with an animal, it's the animal's preferred form of enrichment. I know, that's why I do it. I'm really big into empowering animals and enriching animals. That is my number one goal. And that is why I train using applied behavior analysis and positive reinforcement, because the animals love it. So there's Quincy, my Rottweiler, and I'm teaching her to eat celery. If I were to hand her a piece of celery, now obviously I'm going to take my word for it because I'm not showing a before. But if you were, I do have a video of showing a before to Levi. But if I were to hand her a piece of celery, she'd take it in her mouth and spit it out and not eat it. And then the next time I hand her a piece of celery, I have positively punished the behavior of her taking it in her mouth. She won't even open up her mouth for it. So here I am. And the cool thing about this is she's working for not a treat, because you don't see me deliver a food reinforcer afterwards. What she's working for is the opportunity to be with me, to engage with me, for me to tell her she's good. So let me just go ahead and play it. You hear me eat it? Then I give it to her, give her a little piece. So I'm shaping. So I'm telling her very good. So not only am I bridging, I'm probably just delivered a positive reinforcer. So now I'm going to go bigger. So I take a bite, and then I'm giving her a big piece.
Very good.
She's such a dramatic eater. We do this with our parrots too. We teach them to take aversive tastes, medication. We need to we're training that here at the zoo with several different animals. Nancy Delaney, hey, how are you doing? I've met Nancy here at the zoo. She was in one of my lemur encounters this summer. So let's get started with the topic. Our topic for the day, this episode, is the best of 2020. I want to hear from you, because I'm going to take note. What are some of the best? Coffee with the Critters. We live stream every Sunday morning. I'm going to write this down. Every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And we bring different topics. We have topics. We have Q&As. We have live training demonstrations. We have guests on. Like last week, we had Deb Jones on. I can't remember if that's the first time I've had Deb Jones on in 2020. Usually Deb is here at the center with me when we live stream, but we had the pandemic, so that never happened. We had Deb Jones on last weekend, and I accidentally live streamed it to my personal page versus the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook page. So I want to hear from you. What are some of the best of 2020? Not statistics and insights from what I see. I want to hear from you. What are the best topics of 2020? And maybe we can bring up some of those topics and talk about them again today. Do you like the interviews I have with people? So Deb says, yeah, the only time this year, I think. Yeah. And Deb's been a guest here on Coffee with the Cribbers. That's a different show. 5 to 6 times. So Eva says Joel Vidovic. Yep, you pronounced his name correctly. And I plan on having Joel on in more interviews within the memberships as well. We're in the memberships, we dive deep into applied behavior analysis. Yes, Jen. Hey, Svetla, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while over there in Belgium. Jen, speaking of guest speakers, Jen Hirakawa was on this year as a, maybe we need to get some more working dog people on here. Let me write this down. Jen is down there in Iowa, and we had her on. Jen, the live stream I had with you, Coffee with Critters, was amazing. We did you talked a lot about search and rescue, how it works, how you train dogs for search and rescue. So that was great. And then, Tambry says, trainer for the day at Indian Creek Zoo for me was the best thing ever. Yes, so Tambry has been to the center several times, but this past year she purchased a day with the trainer, which is you get to spend a day with me and you get to see what I go through and what I need to do on a daily basis. And okay, here's a situation. Like as soon as I get off this live stream, I got in here today at 8. I know 2 things I need to do today. 3. We need to move some spider monkeys. We need to get a red ruff lemur moved. We need to capture some crows because they're not trained. We need to capture them and see if there's a health issue going on. So there's a lot happening here. And within that hour of time, we were able to work as a team and organize and delegate and get spider monkeys moved. Bam. Perches are now and shelves are now up for a red ruff lemur. Bam. And as soon as 10 o'clock hits, bam, I'm off to get a red ruff lemur and move it. But Tambry's talking about a day with the trainer. You get to see all of those things. Like Tambry last year, she was able to watch me train the alligators. I love training animals that people don't think will learn or trainable. Everything's learning. If it's surviving, it's learning. And that piece of hair is driving me nuts. If it's surviving, it's learning. So that's why I like to train things like publicly, like turtles, alligators, turkey vultures. I have so many times people are like, what do you train a bird? I'm like, everything you train your dog, except they have wings. Not only can they run, they can fly too. So thank you, Tambry. And yes, our zoo workshop is set for, it's still coming up this early summer. And I have a waiting list for it and people who are not asking for a refund from last year because they don't want to lose their spot for this year. Because I'm going to blow your mind and put you to work. Okay, so let's see. So thank you for that, Tambry. Svetla says, I love seeing and hearing Deb. Everybody loves Deb. Dr. Amy Hopkins as well. Yeah, Dr. Amy Hopkins is out of Yale. We had, let's see, Dr. Hopkins. Let's bring her back on. Hopkins. Or I'm writing this stuff down.
Does anybody have an extra card I could use?
Dr. Amy Hopkins, we interviewed in one of our projects, and we live streamed at the beginning of the pandemic.
I have one in the back barn that I won't need to use.
She specializes in environmental, environmental diseases.
Thanks so much.
And science, and I had her on a Coffee with the Critters at the beginning of the pandemic, okay, talking about what we need to be thinking of that we weren't thinking of. And she had already had it all planned out and thought of while we were just sitting here thinking, what do you mean we won't be able to go to the grocery store? Yeah, so Dr. Hopkins is out of Yale. She's also an avian enthusiast, but she talked about dogs and companion animals in the home and how to take care of animals in the home if all of a sudden you have a COVID house, which many people at this point have had a COVID house. So Karen says I could listen to Joel all day. Yes, I have plans on getting Joel back in here. And we just had Dr. Evelyn Gould on in the memberships in our podcast talking about, she's from Harvard, and she was talking about anxiety. Does anybody in level 1 or level 2, have you listened to that podcast yet? So pay attention, because you're going to see her again. You're going to see her next time, not just hear her. Maggie says Jen Hirakawa was her favorite. So I definitely have Jen wrote down. Jen Hirakawa, Dr. Hopkins, Joel Vidovic, Deb Jones. Diane Hyde says, oh yeah, okay, there's another one for Jen Hirakawa. Diane Hyde out of Long Island says, the interview with the person who works with cadaver dogs. They also find lost people. That was Jen Hirakawa. Jen, I'm trying to think of your website's name. Is it kawafarms.com? And Svetla over there in Belgium says, yes. Jim from the UK, he was on here a couple of times. Let's get him back on here. He works with several. He's a dog behavior consultant, and he works with several. I've yet to meet him face to face, but he's interviewed in level 2, bringing in different dog cases and discussing dog cases. Jennifer says redirecting bad behaviors with large birds, ? What does that mean? Have we had that topic? We've had that topic numerous times. Here on Coffee with the Critters, when I go live in front of animals, you'll see me training animals behind me to keep them stationing, keep them perching, keeping their mouths in this position instead of this one. So we will have live, as soon as we move, which is getting ready to happen. I know I've been saying that for 6 months. As soon as we move, I will start doing live training demonstrations again. They're coming in our Coffee with the Critters, because I will have my own office and I will be able to stand up and walk around. So we haven't had a Coffee with the Critters in the Animal Behavior Center in several months. Maybe have a couple more last ones at our current Animal Behavior Center before we move. So Eva says one of her favorite topics is determining a training program, like a behavior modification program, and how are we going to train this? So, okay, training programs. Let's write that down. Training programs or training plans. So a lot of times when we talk about this in our projects and our memberships, a lot of times you'll hear me say, One of the biggest mistakes we make in your training, if an animal can see, hear, smell, or feel you, you are training it whether you realize it or not. The key question is, what are you training? So a lot of times you'll hear me say the biggest mistake we make when interacting with an animal and teaching it is taking too big of steps in our shaping plan. We were just talking about this last week in a live stream. Oh no, we had a cocktail hour in the Parrot Project on Christmas Eve, a surprise impromptu, and we were talking about a certain animal being afraid of a certain object, and I'm like, that it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I said, I bet you took too big of steps in your shaping plan. And a lot of times that happens. Like people will take an animal and say, just because we think an animal loves to do something, so we go above and beyond and give it more of that something. Well, that size, that amount, that space, that whatever, that moreness, which is a word I just made up, that moreness may be too overwhelming, too overstimulating for that animal and can actually cause that animal to be apprehensive, cautious, curious, but cautious. But if we push it too far, it's too much for the animal. And in our podcast with Dr. Evelyn Gould, I ended up writing down not enough information equals confusion. Okay? In confusion, if somebody just plops you in a strange environment that you've never been in, on a different planet, whatever, and it's just like, here, it's okay, go ahead and move towards that thing. You're probably going to be like, whoa, I have no experience with that thing. So until I can collect more information through observation and seeing what other people are doing, I might feel more comfortable. But if I'm like, no, go ahead, it's okay, then I can cause that person, they can't collect information fast enough. So I can cause fear. And then pairing fear with that particular situation, you can actually positively punish the very behavior you're trying to train. And a lot of times, that's what we do when we're interacting and training with animals. Carol, good morning. I got your Christmas card the other day. And I don't know how I got it because I found it in my front yard. So thank you. Okay. A lot of times we take too big of steps in our shaping plan. I'm just reading through. Oh, and somebody says, I will tell you, we went through Coffee with the Critters this year and started putting out emails with information, and then we started putting in replays of some of our top hit Coffee with the Critters. And I'm here to tell you that board certified behavior analyst Samantha Sarin was one of the most popular interviews we had in 2020. So I would like to bring Samantha back on in 2021. And Samantha has gone live with us in level 2. We pick a topic and we start discussing it as trainers and behavior professionals. And then Samantha brings in her expertise because she has a lot of history. Okay, Elle brings up a topic because she'd heard me talking about what I have to do to the crows as soon as I get off here. The crows are no longer trained. Hang on. Yes, ma'am.
Go out here that looks a little rough. Eyes are like frozen shut.
Okay. Would you be able to give me a second? Would you be able to take it to the back barn? I'm just finishing up my live stream. We did the back barn, and Get it warm, and I'll be right back.
We can go do that. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I cut somebody off. You're very welcome.
Do you guys need help getting the go?
Okay.
Sure.
Elle says, so how do you capture crows using positive reinforcement under a time limit? Well, there's two things in one sentence that don't belong together there. Capture and positive reinforcement. If you're capturing, you're not using positive reinforcement. Okay, so remember me saying I will use a positive punisher if the alternative is worse. I have a concern about one of these crows. I went in yesterday interacting and couldn't get close enough. So I was inducing stress by standing in there. So I left and put on a plan today. I'm just going to go in and capture it. There will be no positive reinforcement. I am capturing it to make sure it's not sick. So, and then note to self, this needs training. So that's what we spend a lot of our time doing here is different species of animals, and we're training them to step on a scale, accept injections, accept medication into the mouth. We will train animals to put out their hands. I have trained giraffe to allow me to, I prepare for the medical exam. So when the vet comes in, it's, there's, with the animals I work very heavily with, there's no need to capture because we're already doing rear end targets for injections. So when the vet comes in, we cue the animal up, the animal comes up, we reinforce over here, vet injects over here. Does that make sense? Oh, we have so many people making comments. Deb says, animals are easy, people are hard. And we were talking about that. Deb and I were talking about that last week in our Coffee with the Critters. Deb Jones from canineinfocus.com. We were talking about that, how it's one of the reasons I got out of working with, that's not true, because I still do. I work one-on-one with people. I will work one-on-one with people, but you have to prove to me. I'm not just in this for the money. You have to prove to me that you are willing to listen and take the time and take the advice that I'm giving you if that's what you're paying me for. Otherwise, don't pay me and walk away, because I have things to do and I have people who are enrolled in my projects and my memberships, and they are dedicated, and you have to be dedicated to be in there. Most of the people that are in there have been subscribing for the past 5 years. They resubscribe because if you are not going to listen to me, then that wastes my time, okay? And I don't mean that to sound harsh, but I have animals that need me and that want to be with me, and that need my training. And if you're wasting my time, it's going to upset me because I have other places I need to be. So that's what Deb and I were talking about last week. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of working. It's why one of the reasons why I know a lot of professional trainers have got out of working with the common public. I will, only after you show me that you're serious and dedicated. But I no longer do dog consultations, and I don't want to. I know a lot of people that do that very well, and I refer people to other people quite a bit. And even if I'm working with an animal that I specialize in, if I think somebody else, this person needs another opinion, a different side of the story, or listening to advice from somebody else, I have no problem referring on, because one thing there is no place for in training animals when lives are on the line is an ego, okay? And if I see somebody with an ego, that is a serious turnoff for me. And usually people with egos, it's extremely obvious very fast. And egos are when you are in it for how important am I versus this animal needs me. And that's why don't waste my time, because I got a lot of animals that need me. And my time on earth may not be as long as I want it to be. So I'm going to make the most of it right now. So anyways, off my soapbox. Next. Next. Jen says, that's right. Check your ego out the door. Yeah, there's a lot of ego in animal training. So, okay, Daniela says she would like to see more of detailed shaping plans. We've had many coffee with the critters in the past. Morning, girls. We have many past coffee with the critters where we show detailed shaping plans. So I've got that written down for some of the top of 2020. I'm taking a look. Topic, Joanna Camburn. Hey, Joanna. Joanna was at our last zoo workshop. Topic, training modifying behavior for animals that are not food driven. Joanna, that is beautiful. Let me write down. Okay, so when we're working with animals, and a lot of us trainers on here have found ourselves with working with different animals where you're trying to pull out treats and the animal's like, nope, not happening. This was a topic of one of our recent podcasts in level 1, level 2, overstimulation or said overstimulation, over threshold, or anxiety. Because the more I started talking about overstimulation and over threshold, I was seeing different instances come to mind. And I was just like, I was pointing out, I was just like, it's like not enough information. Okay. Or could this be anxiety where animals start turning really fast or showing abnormal repetitive behaviors because they're finding themselves in environments where they have too much information, not enough information, and they don't know what to do with it. So you start seeing behaviors labeled as paranoid, overexcited, okay? And we dive deep into that in our podcast with Dr. Evelyn Gould. So when you find yourself, let's talk about some situations where you found yourself in a situation where you try reinforcing with food and it's not happening. So sometimes we find ourselves in a situation, over aroused, that's correct, thank you. You find yourself in a situation where you're like, okay, I start whipping out hot dogs, but the animal's like, no, not happening. And that could be numerous things, such as, okay, the dog was working for hot dogs when we were at home, and they were sitting and giving a head or a hand target. But now we're at the vet, and I'm trying to offer hot dogs and trying to cue behavior, and the dog is not looking at me, not paying attention to me. We have serious situations like this where people walk into the animal behavior center and animals start flying, running, screaming, on cue, Denali, flying, running, screaming, and you can't hear yourself talk, and you're trying to get everybody to station, but they won't go to their stations. So what's the change in the environment? 20 people walked in the door. Okay, they're used to 2 to 3 people being in the center at once. So it could be too much overstimulation from too many people. Another situation where, let's say we find ourselves in a situation with the 2 links. We do get the links cueing to nose target, foot target, rear target. Give me a station with all 4 feet up on a platform so people can see the work we're doing with you. Okay. And then you have a situation where we're doing this through the winter. zoo opens. And then we're trying to get this behavior and 50 people are standing behind us and we can't get it. Just because we've forgotten to train with 2 people behind us, 10 people behind us, 20. And then at the same time, we're using the 4 main factors of reinforcer effectiveness. Training isn't hard, okay? If you think training is too sciencey and too hard, you're taking too big steps in shaping your own learning plans, okay? There's different things I do, like when I study something, I'm the type of person that I can sit there and read it, and when I'm done reading it, I have no clue what I just read. And I've been that way my whole life. When I was a kid, I was in advanced reading classes, but I couldn't understand what I was reading unless I read it aloud. So then I had to, and I was like that. And all through college, I would stand up and I would study for exams, and I would teach my 2 Dalmatians every damn thing they needed to know about anatomy and physiology that was going to be on that exam. But that's how I learned. I had to hear myself talk. And even once I was way done with college and went back and took master level classes in applied behavior analysis, I would stand in the aviary and stand up and talk and read it out loud. And then what I would do, it's my own shaping learning plan. I would sit there and read it out loud, set my book down, turn around, hey Rico, have Rico fly over to me, and I was like, let's do this, what's this intermittent schedule of reinforcement? Oh, hey, Skinner was right. He does know what he's talking about. This works. It's how I learn. And now I no longer have to read out loud, but sometimes I still do. But I can get so vested in a research paper, get so interested that I sit there and read it. I'm like, that was the most damn fascinating thing I think I've ever read. Let me read it again. And I'll go back and I'm reading and I'll read one sentence and I'll have to make mental pictures in my head of what that looks like before I can understand it. Okay? So we're all individuals. Okay, let me catch up on some of what you guys are saying. Somebody said Nature's Nursery. Yes, Nature's Nursery. Everybody loves a little Laura Zitzelberger. Former Director of Operations out at Nature's Nursery Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in White House, Ohio. She's come on with us at least 3 times, talking about, a lot of times, like one of the most favorite of mine are spring babies, okay? When to interact and when to leave your hands off. Let nature take its place. Okay, yeah, hands-on. Let's see what some other people are saying. So Wendy says, one of my miniature donkeys was not interested in treats in the beginning. He wanted to be scratched. Now he takes treats. Yep. And whoever was talking about using non-food reinforcers, that was the video I just showed at the beginning of the Coffee with the Critters. Okay, so I was teaching my dog, my Rottweiler, to eat a piece of celery. I was teaching her to ingest an aversive taste. All right. So that's not work. I'm not working with a food reinforcer there. The food is the behavior I'm trying to teach. The consumption of the food, of the aversive taste, is what I'm trying to teach. What did I reinforce that behavior of her eating celery with? I reinforced, I probably bridged and reinforced at the same time. I said, good. And that is a bridge, that is a marker, but that good, I also see this with Rico, my umbrella cockatoo. They've been deprived of my attention in my interaction due to numerous things happening in my life right now. So she was working to the best of my ability of identifying reinforcers. She was working for engagement, attention, to hear how good they want to hear how good they are, because it's been paired with many desirable things in the past. So then I shaped the behavior of her eating a piece of celery like this, then like this, a big bad piece. Okay, so there is training using attention as a reinforcer. So I've got that written down. Non-food driven let's say that's called lack of motivation or not being able to match reinforcers with behavior. Okay. And that's another topic we talk about in our podcast. Identifying motivation, creating motivation. I work with several different species of animals, and there's two that I'm working with that you guys in level 1 have seen me working with, a pair of very fearful animals, and they have never been close to humans, and now we've got them to the point where they are getting on a scale for us. Well, they're not getting on a scale for us. They're getting on a scale for a mouse. Oh, which reminds me, I've got an enrichment toy behind me that I wanted to show you guys, but I'm writing all this stuff down. Okay, so we should probably go in depth on different behaviors like extreme fear. I've worked with an animal that was so fearful that they would not urinate or defecate or drink water or eat if they knew I was around for hours. Okay. When we don't learn from easy, when we work with behaviors that are out of, I love working with behaviors where I'm like, what the holy heck is this? What am I seeing? And what function, what purpose does this behavior serve for this animal? And how the hell am I going to change it? This animal is seriously stressed. What is happening? And how long is the history of reinforcement for this undesired behavior? And you can, a lot of times, I don't know, based on my experience, a lot of times you can get a pretty good idea of the history of reinforcement of an abnormal repetitive behavior based on how well practiced it is. Like I've seen animals like run, touch this, turn around, come back, run, touch this, turn around, come back, or do a flip. And I've seen it like if they miss touching, like they go to touch that wall, but they missed it, you'll see them stop and go back and touch that wall and then come over and finish that repetitive behavior. Not all abnormal repetitive behavior is, what do I want to say, bad. I have some. A lot of abnormal repetitive behaviors help a person cope with the situation at hand, and that falls back on anxiety with Dr. Evelyn Gould in our podcast. Let me read through. Okay. Samantha says, Laura, how about reviewing basic pairing procedures? I'm thinking basic pairing procedures. Okay. Identifying valuable reinforcers, becoming predictable. Identify. Okay. You recently helped me with this. Yeah. Let me write that down. So, okay. Okay. And a lot of times I'll tell people, I tell them two different things. You'll hear me say, predictability leads to boredom. And you'll also hear me say, predictability has its place. If I'm working with an unsocialized, undomesticated animal or very fearful animal, I will be so predictable in every single movement. And if I have to, and so many times, like I'm continuing to do things over. I will do this when I approach you and set in your food dish somewhere in your cage or something inside your enclosure or in your room. I'm going to be very predictable. And then I'm going to, if you're fearful of humans, I'm going to deliver what I want. And then I'm going to get out of there fast. Okay. So that's building a line of communication. And I do this over and over again. I'm becoming very predictable to the animal. Over time, once I see the animal understanding and like what Samantha said, pairing procedures. So I'm creating conditioned reinforcers. Over time, I want to start shaping small pieces, small changes in behavior. Because with predictability leads to boredom, and animals learn through changing environments. But to change those environments with a delicate balance, we have to change those environments and pay attention to their behavior and being able to understand, am I pushing this animal too far? Because that's when we start poisoning the cue. We start positively punishing the very behavior we're trying to change. And I could stay on that topic for a long, long time. Okay, so Samantha, maybe we touch base and talk about that, and bringing a little more light to those situations. Because you also hear me say stagnant environments create behavior concerns, and stagnant environments that don't change. So everything's the same for that animal. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's time to go to the vet. The animal needs created. It is so beyond over threshold, inducing so much anxiety, fear, whatever, that at that point it can actually kill animals. So you'll hear me say stagnant environments create, a lot of times, your most serious behavior concerns. And one of the saddest things for me to see is an animal that spends hours upon hours a day not moving. And that is why I'm here. Okay. Donna says, I enjoyed Saturday evening cocktails with the critters. It was relaxing, interactive because it was on Zoom. Yeah, so when I do cocktails with the critters, I usually announce them last minute because they fill up so fast. And once you get 50 people in a Zoom and everybody's drinking and trying to talk at the same time, it's a big hot mess. So I'll post it last minute and only accept in a certain amount of people. And we do that usually on Saturday nights. Not every Saturday night, but I usually try to pick one Saturday night every other month. We also, hey, Denali, we also have a monthly Q&A, which will probably happen within the next 2 weeks. Topic, biological underpinnings of learning, example, natural behavior. You want this, Emily? Or Diamond? Thank you. Oh, imprinting. That would be great. Imprinting. Or maybe the difference between an imprint. Oh, I can talk about concerns with imprinting, or difference between imprinting and habituation. That's a Laura Z. That's a Laura Z topic. Laura, you still on here? Carly says, topic, adaptations in training for animals with disabilities. That's a great topic. Training with disabilities, or I like to call them special needs, because adaptation is a wonderful thing. I know that from living with a flighted parrot that had no eyes, a deaf and blind dog, and a deaf dog. There's the awesome Patricia Anderson. Reinforcers and reinforcement, such a complex topic, often misunderstood. Is that not the truth? Tracking progress and data collection. That is Samantha and Joel Vidovic. That has that written all over it. It's okay. That's a great data collection. Samantha has a t-shirt, I know, because it was in her profile picture. It says, talk data to me. Okay. All right. And some of that, we talk about that, Robin, in our memberships, but let's see what we can do to bring it on here. Special needs training, please. Absolutely. We will do that. So, we're up on our hour, and I just wanted to say thank you and Happy New Year to everybody. Just a couple of things. If you enjoyed some of what you heard and watched today on today's Coffee with the Critters, this is what we do regularly in Level 1 for companion animals. These are our annual memberships that you can find on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. Level 2, which is more for people that want to know more about applied behavior analysis and working with animals in a variety of species. In our Level 1 and Level 2, we have our monthly podcast, and we have a 5-year podcast library. For people that want more species specific, you can bundle your membership with a project, or you can just subscribe to an annual project alone. Like our parrot project is extremely popular. Pig project, you're in for life. We also have we have gift certificates. We've had a couple different people purchase gift certificates for the animal lovers on their list in the past couple of days. And it's not too late. If you need this emailed to them this week, you can purchase this. And it's a gift that gives all year long with our memberships. We have webinars, we have consultations, we have our training packages and the things we use in training. And with that being said, I want to say a very happy new year to all of you. And thank you for attending another year. 2020 is time to go away now. I bet you a lot of people are going to be celebrating New Year's Eve this year. I don't really get into New Year's Eve. I will be this year. I'll be like, cheers, bye-bye now. So with that being said, if you have any information or any questions for me, feel free to email me, Laura at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. Chantel says the memberships are amazing. Thank you, Chantel. And Jen Hirakawa says renewed my level 2. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your loyalty, because if you are loyal, you're in it for the long haul. Thank you. Happy New Year. And I will see you next Sunday. All right.